Good morning, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live, and we're going to be covering an array of topics today there. Well, a small group there. We're going to be looking about a little bit at the Ukraine situation, the war that's going on there. Going to be talking to you about Israel and what's going on. The U.S. government getting ready to give $1 billion to the Israeli government for an Iran war. Why would we be going to war with Iran? That's something else we want to talk about because, as we know, in Iraq we went to war over the body of Nimrod, something that no one else really talks about, but we did. And I want to bring some of those facts up with you. Must be something there in Iran that we want in order to make that war a reality. So let's get right into some of these things that are happening. I want to share with you. I want to thank my wife for sending me this article. Actually, she got a friend of us that emailed us there, John. So I want to thank John for sending her the issue about Ukraine admits shelling area around the nuclear plant. And because the whole issue is just heating up over there. Things are not dying down. As I mentioned last night, Germans have moved in troops into Lithuania. Russians have moved in nuclear weapons there into Belarus. And of course, they say that Putin is against the New World Order and he's battling the New World Order. So more and more we have Christians here in America that are starting to say, wow, maybe Putin is a good guy, but I caution you a moment for that, because you need to remember that the whole ideology to conquer this world, to bring about a New World Order, is to bring about the spread of communism. And as I have shared with you in the times past as well, information that came out of Israel was stop speaking against China. China is a communist nation, but I was told that China, communist China, will be the new world's superpower, and Israel will be aligning themselves with China. So all the stuff about Russia being Gog of Magog is all smoke and mirrors, and we need to be very cautious about what's going on there, what's happening in different places around the world, before we just assume that Putin is a knight in shining armor. I appreciate the fact that he's liberating the Donetsk, Luhansk people there in eastern Ukraine there, the Russian-speaking people. Also, he's talking about Moldova. So he's being portrayed as a liberator and a fighter against the New World Order, but they've only given us two scenarios, and out of those two scenarios, one of those will actually come to fruition. So it's not looking good regardless. Let's get right into this. Ukraine admits shelling area around nuclear plant there. The Kiev's general staff also says there are no Russian troops inside at the Zaporozhye facility. The Ukrainian military publicly admitted striking the area around the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant in an official general staff briefing on Friday. Previously, Kiev had claimed that Russian forces used the plant as a military base. Now it says all troops have relocated due to the visit by the IAEA inspectors, that's the nuclear inspectors, in the area of the settlements of Kherson and Energodor. Accurate strikes by our troops destroyed 3 enemy artillery systems as well as an ammunition depot and up to the company of personnel, said the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine during the daily briefing. The military also claimed that due to the arrival of the IAEA inspector team, the Russian occupiers removed all military equipment from the territory of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. About 100 units 100 units moved to the plant. Adam Energomash and the rest were dispersed in the nearest settlements. So it's showing that Russia is doing a lot of cooperation when it comes to things that are going on. Of course, we're getting different story that's told to the American media there. But this also was posted on Twitter. I thought it was interesting from Zero Head, or actually from Jeep Dog. Well, not somebody that liked it. Sorry about that. Zero Hedge at Gov T Trader shared this. U.S. hasn't given Ukraine $40 billion. Excuse me. The U.S. has given Ukraine $40 billion. No audit trail. No accountability. This is Kiev, Ukraine yesterday. They needed another 13 billion. You guys, things look dire there, is the question. And of course, they're showing their Ukrainians just having a party in Kiev. So the issue comes down to is this here. As I said to you before, and that may be on our Patreon channel, that the money is not going to the military or the people that are fighting on Ukraine's side, but rather going to the politicians and all of their groups there. That's where this money is actually going to. So it is just a bunch of smoke and mirrors and just total bunch of garbage there. Also on Twitter, this post here came in. Let me just see if I can pull this out. Asal Rod posted this. The U.S. will give $1 billion to Israel for a possible war with Iran that Americans don't want. Meanwhile, Americans in Jackson, Mississippi don't have clean drinking water. Now, I found this rather interesting here to begin with, and I'm going to share with you why, because when you click on this here and you click on the photos, she shows you here it's probably not enough money. The infrastructure law dedicates $283 million for water infrastructure. This is an article from amp.cnn.com writing about the situation in Jackson, Mississippi. Right? It goes on to say, according to Wicker, but as of July, a White House information sheet listed $75 million in this type of funding for the entire state for fiscal year 2022, most of which is focused on lead pipe replacement. Jackson mayor has said his city literally needs $1 billion for its entire water system to be replaced. Now, comparison to that, to the Times of Israel article here, the U.S. links a deal to sell Israel 4 refueling planes needed for a potential Iran strike. And of course, they're to arrive in 2025 at the earliest. A deal to cost Israel nearly $1 billion, with funds coming from military aid Washington provides to Jerusalem. Well, right? Let's go figure all of this, right? That's what's interesting. Need $1 billion on both sides of the aisle here, and so instead of helping the people in Jackson, Mississippi, instead we'll allocate $1 billion to Israel to be able to fight Iran. And Joe Biden in the Jerusalem Post says here that he says to Yair Lapid, "We will never tie Israel's hands against Iran." We will never tie, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Tom Nides said, quoting Biden, "We are aware of the danger from Iran." He says here the U.S. will never stop Israel from defending itself against Iran. U.S. President Joe Biden told Minister Yair Lapid, according to the U.S. Ambassador to Israel Tom Nides. So that's what's going on there. And I find that a little bit interesting as well, because you can't help but ask yourself the question, why are we really willing to go to war with Iran in the first place? And which, by the way, and I don't have it up, let me see if I can pull this out for you real quick here. We had just the other day, and I was wanting to bring this out to you there. Let's see, Iran, whoop. And Israel, the F-35s, the Saudis had reported that the F-35s in Israel were able to breach the airspace of Iran undetected. And let's see, F-35. Don't know if I'm going to pull it up. No, it's not going to work like that. Still not pulling it out that way there either. Anyway, I'd gotten the report myself directly out of Israel before they made this public. Maybe this article here will still kind of cover it on the Times of Israel. So let me just quickly, let's just bring this up. Standing next to the F-35 fighter jet, Lapid issues a warning to Iran, don't test us. On a visit to the air base, Prime Minister says too early to know if nuclear deal has been stopped. If Iran continues to pose a threat, he adds, it will discover Israel's long arm and capabilities. And as I said to you, the Israelis have been able to penetrate Iranian airspace undetected. So the Prime Minister Yair Lapid said Tuesday it was too soon to know if Israel had succeeded in thwarting the emergency nuclear agreement between the world powers and Iran, which it sees as harmful. Lapid, who is on a visit to the Nevatim air base in southern Israel, which houses the Israeli Air Force's fleet of advanced F-35 fighter jets, also issued a warning to Iran. It is still, let's see here, I wanted to see if he puts that in there anywhere. Long arm and capabilities. We will continue to act on all fronts against terrorism and against those who seek to harm us, he said. It doesn't say that in there, but that's what the Saudis were bringing out, is that Israel was able to do that. They were testing the ability to see if Iran was able to detect them. But I might remind you, though, as well, Iran also has the cloaking technology, which allows them to strike Israel with their missiles, and Israel can't shoot them down. If you recall, the Dimona, and let's see, Iran and Syria missile. Don't know if that'll pull that up. Yeah, here it is right here. This here, they don't go into a whole lot of it about it right here. No injuries from the blast in Dimona. A missile was fired from either Iran or Syria. And this took place back, well, they have here April 21st, 2021. That's actually a different one. I was unaware of that one there. But the thing was Israel was unable to detect the missile coming in. That is a cloaking technology that the Iranians got from the Chinese. And so Iran has their own capabilities, quite impressive, to be able to battle against Israel. So anyway, though, so like I said, my big question, though, is why are we so interested in going to war with Iran? And this could be the reason behind that, one of the possibilities behind that. And so I wanted to be able to share that with you. Skeleton of an ancient giant found in Iran. This was back in February 15th of 2017, the article. And they go in here and they talk about these giants that they found. It says there's no indication that the giant was treated with fear or respect when alive or in death. The square graveyard was fenced with stone walls covered with monoliths, and a large amount of broken pottery was found next to it. That doesn't sound like they thought he might be a biblical. Sound like they thought he might be a biblical Nephilim. Was this giant one of the rumored giants kept in suspended animation and stasis chambers for thousands of years, possibly using alien technology or even being members of an alien race themselves, to be reanimated at some pre-designated time or in an event of an emergency that causes someone to break the glass? From the outside, or from within. Carbon dating on the skeleton would possibly answer that, and Hassanpur was the giant, and the other remains currently being tested. It is indeed a mythical or alien giant. Will the results ever be released? Now, chances are the answer to that question is no. They're not going to release it. But the other big issue, though, is that's why we normally go to war with these types of nations. Now, this is interesting here. This article, although I put this up here, Ancient Mystery, states in Iran, a 12,000-year-old Anunnaki tomb was discovered and explored. But the only problem I have with this article here, I'll still cite from it, is that they are using the head of Nimrod in the article. And in fact, the video here, this is a breastplate that was on Nimrod. This was found in Iraq, where they brought his body back. So I don't know if someone made a mistake in putting this together. They put in here in the territory of Iran, the tomb found by Jaromir and Carriage, but or is this a different body. I'm not sure what the issue is regarding that, but that's actually Nimrod. His body is in the airport, or under the airport there in Colorado, and we know that the Israelis have taken over that project. But let's just say, though, that this is just somebody's confused in what they put together here. They do talk about here, and this is what's important, according to the Sumerian tablets, before humans took possession of the earth, we were nothing more than brutes wandering aimlessly. That's why the Anunnaki arrived and determined we needed to be upgraded. Now, you got to keep in mind, as a believer myself in Jesus, I'm not into all the time frames, we'll say, per se, that it's brought out here. But at the same time, I do look at historical documents, and I dive into this because I also believe that the Bible does support a lot of the things that we find out there. It's just they've kind of hidden it, or they've taken and they've altered some of the English translations of the original text, which kind of keeps it a mystery for a lot of people. So I just want to make sure I kind of let you guys know that. Anyway, it says they combined their DNA with that of our forefathers to create the archetype of the modern person. This is what's written in the, as they put it there, the Sumerian tablets. And that is true. That's what's in there. In fact, the whole story of Genesis is very similar, not the exact, but very similarly is written in the Sumerian tablets as well. But anyway, it says here, the idea of the worker, they forced us to work day and night, digging digging every ounce of gold and mineral we could get our hands on. The important thing, though, is that they combined their DNA. It was a DNA manipulation, and that's what they show in this ancient stone things that they have discovered over the years about that. Archaeologists discovered what seems to be a 12,000-year-old Anunnaki grave in Iran, which has not been tampered with since its foundation, according to most scholars. Just kind of read that to you as well. So like I said, I don't know how this thing about Nimrod got thrown in there unless someone made a mistake about this information. But with that being said, and again, I know that the government is looking at the DNA manipulation. I won't say why here because we are on YouTube, and that could become a big issue if I were to mention why. So I'll kind of have to leave that blank there. So we'll kind of, let me just jump a couple other quick things here. Flooding is going on all different parts of the nation. We have droughts part of the nation, floods another part, and of course that cycle is following different parts around the world. And this here, I believe, is up around Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken. Forget where this article says. Yeah, this day in Rhode Island history, March 31st, 2010. Oh, actually, this was from the March 31st, 2010, recorded breaking floods devastated the region. Why they're doing this on that, I don't know why. It looks like they're using an old flood pictures that happened there. Let's just drop that one out altogether there. What I did want to show you, though, is the hurricane systems here. We've got a lot of different hurricanes or systems that have been forming. Earl, almost a hurricane now at 65 miles per hour. Danielle had got to 75 miles an hour. It came up, it veered, went back to the right. Earl now also looking as if it's just going to go straight north and then veer back to the right. If you remember, one of the things, oh, by the way, I'm going to get into these little ancient miniature people that was discovered in Iran later. I'll do that over on Patreon with you. Probably late tonight before I can do that one because of my time constraints today. But at any rate, we'll come back to that later. Folks that I know in DC are telling me that they're continuing to use HAARP to try to stop these storms from getting to the United States because of their fear of them turning into hypercanes. So I think this is why we're seeing these abrupt changes in them being steered going north and sent back over to the east. Now, that will make it difficult for places like New England, etc., because that means they're going to get busted with all these storms. And when they do come back across, and once that happens, cause massive flooding for them at the least. They normally don't have hurricane force winds by that time, but they get pretty doggone high. And of course, the U.S. is never going to admit to that. So for those of you that may be wondering, they won't admit to using CERN to steer these storms. because in that case then the European countries that are there on the coastline that all these storms are being turned back on them are going to ask, whoa, why is the United States causing this to happen and devastating our coastlines, flooding our cities and towns instead? So yeah, that's one reason why you will not see that. Listen, I'm Stephen Benu. You're watching Israeli News Live. Thank you for joining us. We have posted a few videos over on our Patreon channel if you'd like to check those out. They were done, I think, last week, but I've actually, like I said, tonight, I'm going to be getting into that one that I just showed you, that little clip of there of these mysterious lost race of little people in Iran. By the way, they're still alive and well in the United States. So I'll get into that over on Patreon. What's going on about that? I saw a thing on, I think it's a History Channel about that, or about an abduction of a little girl and a little boy that got abducted. He was released by these little people. So I did have in one of my meetings there, I asked about that, and that all was confirmed. So it'd be a little interesting tidbit I'd like to share with you guys there. Thank you for listening. Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. As always, our address is right above my head here. Our website is IsraeliNewsLive.org. Check out our website, and also videos that we load up through iConnect are always on our website as well. You can watch them there, and ones that we find that are important we have translated in about 7 different languages for you to be able to listen to. God bless you.